There are rangers of all types, from all walks of life with varying skill sets, and you entertain their notions of what it means to be truly in touch with nature, to understand the interweavings of the forest or the babbling brook. But you know that what they know is just a poor facsimile for true nature, from where all of the bounties of the forests and the fields come from, the Feywild. Today I'm talking about the Feywanderer Ranger. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Geek Pantheon. I am Eric, and today, like I said, we were talking about the Feywanderer Ranger from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, and this has been one that's been really requested. Akar from our Discord and down in the comments below has been requesting this one for quite some time, so I'm happy to do it. If you have any subclasses that you would like me to go over, whether they are from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything or any of the other D&D 5th edition source material, please let me know down in the comments below, or if you're in our Discord, which there's also a link to down below, let me know over there. Anyway, so let's talk about, from a overview standpoint, the Feywanderer Ranger before we get into the class features breakdown. So this one is a really cool and unique and pretty interesting version of the Ranger because it's a Ranger that can serve as the face of the party. It's a Ranger that can be a character that really shines in social situations once you hit that third level and take the Feywanderer subclass for a variety of reasons that we'll get into. But this one really is a Ranger designed almost to deal with other creatures, other beings that aren't beasts of the forest. This one has a lot of abilities that give them the capacity to thrive in social settings. Now, whether or not from a flavor and a role-playing standpoint they do well is up to you, because obviously being touched by the Feywild can cause people to act in ways that the material plane may deem odd or aloof. So that's up to you on how you play the character. But from a mechanical standpoint, then definitely this is a character that can really shine in social situations, which isn't the norm for a ranger unless you're specifically building a ranger that you want to be able to thrive in those kind of situations, but that's in spite of the mechanics a lot of time. All right, so let's get into the class features. So first and foremost is Dreadful Strikes, which is a third level class ability that you get. This allows you, when you strike a creature with a weapon attack, you can add 1d4 psychic damage to the damage that you deal. And at 11th level, this bumps up to 1d6. So nothing too crazy, just, a nice little boost to your damage that you're putting out. And it's psychic damage, which isn't one of the more common damages to have resistance or vulnerability to. Obviously, there are some creatures that are built to deal with psychic damage, but especially at third level, you're not going to be running into them a whole heck of a lot. And if you are, they're probably going to out-level you and you should just run away anyway. But yeah, I like this ability. I like that it's just a little stack on top of your normal damage. And it not going up to a d6 until 11th level is a pretty long time to wait for that. But I don't think it's too much of a letdown, because your weapon damage is going to be increasing through your proficiency bonus and getting better weapons and stuff like that. So I think that this Dreadful Strikes ability is just a nice little cherry on top of what you normally get as a ranger, showing your capacity to deal psychic damage to harm the mind of other creatures. And then additionally, Otherworldly Glamour. Now this one I did mention in my Tasha's Cauldron of Everything review as being something that could potentially break a table if built in a certain way. So what this does is at third level, you get to add your Wisdom modifier to any charisma-based skill checks that you're making, and you get proficiency in either Deception, Persuasion, or Performance, your decision, once you gain this class feature. So yeah, if you have a ranger that you have built to be charisma heavy, you want them to be the face of the party out of the gate, and so your two primary stats that you've kind of built around are wisdom and charisma, then you could potentially be looking at a really high deception, persuasion, performance, whichever skill you decide to go with your proficiency bonus. That's barring taking a background that gets you proficiency in the other two skills. So you could have proficiency in all three and be adding two ability modifiers plus your proficiency bonus, which at third level is +2. So you're looking at potentially a +8 at third level if you have 16 in charisma and wisdom by the time you hit third level. And so that's not nothing at third level. I don't think it's as bad as the College of Eloquence Bard, because you're not able to take 10 on those rolls. You could still roll poorly even with a really high modifier. But yeah, I mean, it's beefy, and I like it. I think thematically it works really well. I would need to see it on the table before I make the call as to whether or not it was potentially game breaking for social encounters. But I do think from a flavor standpoint, it makes a lot of sense being touched by the Fae, giving you this kind of otherworldly charm and feeling that other people have when they're around you. Like the class teacher says, your otherworldly glamour intoxicates people and allows you to use your wisdom in addition to your charisma to really draw people in. And then additionally, you get to expand your ranger spell list as you level with this subclass, and at third level you gain charm person, which makes total sense in my opinion. The capacity to use powers from the Feywild to charm other people is kind of the bread and butter of the Feywild and creatures that come from the Feywild or are touched by the Feywild. So nothing really to dive deep into with this class spell that you get, because it makes a lot of sense. Any other spell at this point I think would be wrong. So yeah, charm person definitely makes a lot of sense here. Then at 5th level, you get the spell that once again is one of the defining features of a certain type of Feywild creature, and in fact a lot of them get it, and that is Misty Step. Obviously I was referencing the Eladrin having the Misty Step ability, being creatures of the Feywild. Well, you being supernaturally touched or from the Feywild in this different capacity, you now gain Misty Step. Obviously if you were building an Eladrin Feywanderer, then this would be kind of a double dip, I guess. But I don't think you can omit it from a design standpoint, with the assumption that that a lot of people are going to be making Eladrin Feywanderer Rangers. So I do like that they included it here. I think it makes a lot of sense. And so, yeah, I'm not complaining about it. I just kind of recognize that there are other means in which you could get the Misty Step ability to where this might come across as a bit of a letdown if you took the Fey Touched feat right before this. But think about that while you're building this character. You're going to get this ability at 5th level. So especially if you're at 4th level, considering what feat to take, maybe hold off on gaining Misty Step until 5th level. And at 7th level, you get Beguiling Twist, which is a really cool kind of counter-strike style ability, where when you or a creature that you can see within 120 feet of you succeeds on a saving throw against being charmed or frightened, then you can use your reaction to immediately target the creature that caused the saving throw to be rolled and make them make a wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC. And if they fail, they are charmed by you and they get the requisite saving throws on their turns and all that kind of stuff. But that's pretty darn cool to be able to turn the tables on somebody attempting to use charm magic on you or an ally, and almost using the Feywild magic to intercept and stop them. This is obviously how you flavor it, because obviously you've already made the roll before you use this, but your power is stopping their charm and pushing it back into their mind. I think this is a really fun ability. I like abilities that are reactionary and allow you to turn the tables on an enemy trying to do something to you. So I'm a huge fan of this, and it does make a lot of sense from a being of the Feywild kind of having dominion over this type of magic. And so if somebody else tries to use it on you or an ally, being like, do you not know who you're dealing with right now? And pushing it back on them. And speaking of having dominion over magic and stopping others in their tracks, at 9th level, you get the Dispel Magic spell. Dispel Magic spell. Anyway, you get Dispel Magic. And yeah, this one makes some sense. I didn't take a whole lot of time to look at the other options that they could have slotted in here. But, you know, with everything up to this point being so heavily flavored with elements of the Feywild. I think Dispel Magic is just a very vanilla spell to include here. I think that there are other spells. So I did just take a second to look at the other options, just so I could speak from an informed position as to what else you could put in here, because Dispel Magic is a 3rd level spell. And I looked at the enchantment and illusion schools of magic, because those are the two that really, for me anyway, just scream Feywild magic. And there's a lot of really cool ones. There's Incite Greed, which forces creatures that can see the precious thing that you present to them to become charmed by you, and all they can do is use their movement to safely move towards you. There's Fast Friends, which would be a really cool spell, once again charming people into performing tasks for you. Or on the illusion side, there's Hypnotic Pattern, which would be really cool. Or Phantasmal Steed, if you want to say that there's like a horse that is half in the Feywild and half on the material plane that you summon to your side. So there's a lot of really cool spells that I feel like you could have slotted in here thematically that would have been really interesting and really, really cool. Dispel Magic's not a bad spell. It's just, like I said, pretty vanilla. And I think you could have added some sprinkles onto that vanilla ice cream to make it truly something special to fit in for the Feywanderer, in my opinion. But I don't hate Dispel Magic here. I just feel like it's kind of like, okay. If you're enjoying this video and finding it at all helpful, please give it a thumbs up down below and subscribe to the channel. Please leave a comment down there letting me know what you think about the Feywanderer Ranger subclass and whether or not you like it. It really does help out the videos quite a bit. And if you want to talk to me about all this stuff in real time, you can head on over to twitch.tv/thegeekpantheon. I do stream on Twitch every Sunday and Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central, and on Saturday mornings as well. Come by, hang out. I would love to have you. And then at 11th level, you gain Fey Reinforcements as a class feature. So this allows you to take one of the new spells from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, Summon Fey, and you get to cast it once without using a spell slot per long rest. It does not count against the spells that you know for the purposes of knowing spells from the Ranger spell list. You can cast it without material components all the time, and you can elect to cast it without needing concentration, though at that point the casting time becomes 1 minute long. So you could do it as preparation for a battle as opposed to in the thick of things if you wanted to. So yeah, I like this. I think coming off of the Dispel Magic 9th level option to this one, I feel like is just a complete 180 turn of, yes, this is totally thematic. You are an 11th level Feywanderer, so clearly you have some strong ties to the Feywild. Maybe you have some clout with an Archfey, and you can summon allies in your moment of need to help you from the Feywild. And I like all the conditions here about how it doesn't affect the amount of spells that you know. You can cast it without material components because, once again, you're just tied to that plane. And once per long rest, you can do it without using a spell slot. I think all of that stuff is really cool and really speaks to your character's connection to the Feywild. And then at 13th level, you gain Dimension Door as a spell on your Ranger spell list. This one, once again, is a cool spell. Obviously, the idea, I feel like, is you stepping into the Feywild for a brief moment and then coming out in another spot. So yeah, I think you can theme this one to be really cool and really interesting. I don't think it just screams Feywild magic. Once again, like in the early options that you were getting of Charm Person and Misty Step, those were very Feywild. Whereas, once again, Dispel Magic, really vanilla. I don't think Dimension Door is quite as bad as Dispel Magic in that regard, because you are a planar creature, and so you're using that ability to move throughout the environment. But yeah, I think it's fine. It's just not my favorite. It doesn't jump out and be like, yes, this is exactly the spell that you should have. And then at 15th level, you gain Misty Wanderer, which allows you to use the Misty Step spell without using a spell slot a number of times equal to your Wisdom modifier, minimum of once per long rest, which at 15th level, you're probably pretty easily as a ranger looking at 4, maybe 5 uses of this. So yeah, I think that this is a very flavorful class feature for this class. And additionally, you can also take one person within 5 feet of you with you, and they appear in a space 5 feet away from you. So you can also take people with you when you Misty Step now, one person specifically. But yeah, I once again, I think that the class features of this class do a lot to make up for how kind of a letdown the higher level spells are in terms of really pushing forward that flavor of the subclass. I think the class features do what they can to make up for that between Fey Reinforcements and Misty Wanderer. All like those are really cool and really thematic. So I really like them. And then lastly, at 17th level, you gain the Mislead spell. And this one really does swing back into the realm of being really good, really flavorful, and making a lot of sense for this subclass because you are creating an illusory double of yourself, and you can you become invisible, and you can send them moving around and have them perform gestures and even see through their senses while sacrificing your ability to see through your own. But this does feel very Feywild-esque, being able to create an illusion of a doppelganger while also hiding yourself. I think this one makes a lot of sense, and I really like the spell here. So let's talk about how to play a Feywanderer Ranger. So obviously this Ranger is in a lot of ways built around affecting other people's minds for good or ill in a lot of regards. Very kind of like the Great Old One Warlock. The Great Old One Warlock has a lot more like offensive, like I'm going to harm your mind. Whereas the Feywanderer Ranger really only has the Dreadful Strikes ability at 3rd level that they get. So yeah, I mean, there's not as much like ill intent as the Great Old One Warlock, but there are 2 interesting ways that you could define this character from a backstory standpoint as you level. So either you could obviously be an agent of the Feywild, somebody sent into the material plane, and you are working for an Archfey or some other powerful entity from the Feywild. And so once you level, you start to get that communication, you get abilities, you get that strong connection to the Feywild once you hit 3rd level. The other way that you could play it is as a normal ranger going about their business, adventuring, maybe with the intentions of being a horizon walker or a scout, or like you could really play up this idea that you were going to take another subclass and then work with your DM to be like, no, at around the end of 2nd level, I would like something to happen to tie my character to the Feywild, whether or not I stumble upon an Archfey that has come over to the material plane and I do something to either engender myself to them or to make them angry, and they like against my will bring them into my into their servitude. Either one of those could be really interesting, but just that idea of like, I was going to be a scout, but I'm a Feywanderer, whether I like it or not. So I like that idea of how to play this character, of getting sucked into the machinations of the Feywild against your will, possibly, or it just being an opportunity that springs up. You're like, well, I don't see how I can say no to this. So yeah, I guess I'll do it. Now, types of parties that you could assemble for this Ranger subclass to work really well. Obviously, you could do an all Fey party and just be able to charm anyone and everyone with the Feywanderer, the Archfey Warlock, the Oath of the Ancients Paladin, the Circle of Dreams Druid, the Wild Magic Barbarian or Sorcerer, and I'm sure I'm forgetting someone else. The College of Glamour Bard, that was the one I was forgetting. All of those very explicitly in their flavor talk about ties to the Feywild. And so you could create a party of a group of agents from the Feywild. Or if we go with the second option that I spoke about this kind of accidental thing happening, maybe all of you were present for this incident. Maybe all of you were sucked in and had to become agents for the Feywild, for this Archfey against your will. I know for the Warlock, you have to pick that at 1st level, so it would be a little bit different from a timing standpoint. But, you know, I'm sure you, your fellow players, and your DM could figure it out and make it work, and it'll be awesome. And then the other option for a type of party that I think would be really interesting to see the Feywanderer in is a party that's dedicated to the protection of the material plane against outside forces. I know I've come back to this well a lot ever since the Oath of the Watchers video that I did way back when, but I love that subclass and I love that concept for a party. But there's this trope a lot of times when you're dealing with a group of individuals that have this like dedicated ethos to fight against a singular thing, that there's a lot of times one person on the team that is of that thing, like the inside, not even the inside person, because it's not like they work for them, but just that person that fits the description of who they would normally be fighting against, but for a multitude of reasons they're on the team to fight against those things. If any of you have watched The Boys on Amazon Prime or read the comics, which it's superheroes, but for adults, so don't watch it if you're a child. But a member of their team is a superhero, even though this whole team is dedicated to fighting against superheroes. They have that one person that fits the description of who they would normally fight against, and that's a very common trope in a lot of different formats. But you could do that with this character of being somebody that was touched by the Feywild or is from the Feywild and has dedicated themselves to fighting against other invading forces, or even agents of the Feywild. You could do that, and that would be really interesting and cool. And how to DM for this subclass. So there's one really interesting idea that I had of one of the iconic things about the Feywild is the different courts of the Feywild. A lot of times they're centered around the seasons, like the court of autumn and the court of spring, court of winter. And something that you could do, because these courts have very vastly different emotions and landscapes and all this kind of stuff attached to them, even though they all exist in the same plane, you could have the effects that the Feywanderer Ranger has on other people be influenced by different courts. If you wanted to do it just by the seasons of the year and say, well, when it's winter on the material plane, that means the court of winter is more powerful in the Feywild, that's fine. You could do it that way and just say that perhaps the way that their powers manifest, not necessarily are like cold, but are more morose, are more sad. Like when people charm them, they have a sense of melancholy about them because the court of winter is in power. And when it's the court of spring, when people are charmed by them, they become really bubbly and happy and full of life because it's springtime and the court of spring is in power. So you could do that, and that could be a really interesting way to once again continue to reinforce that idea of the Feywild being behind their powers and how fickle the Feywild is sometimes. Sometimes the Feywild will change on a dime, and so really getting into the various courts of the Feywild, and as a DM having that knowledge to where maybe you can make it based on circumstance or physical location or whatever. That would be a really interesting thing to do. And then additionally, the other part of DMing for the subclass that I think could be really cool is kind of like with a warlock, how the source of their pact will make demands of them. I talked about that a little bit in the Great Old One Warlock video that I did, link there. But you could do a similar thing, but to really distinguish it from the Warlock, don't have it be an Archfey that's reaching out to them. Have it be the actual Feywild is not like speaking to them, but just giving them these compulsions and pushing their mind in certain directions to where it's like, well, you see somebody chopping down a bunch of trees or stamping on flowers or something, and you can feel the emotions rising up in you and you don't know why. Like you never cared about this. Maybe your dad was a logger. It's like it's never bothered you, but for some reason you really need to go stop that person. You really need to go charm them and convince them to stop what they're doing. That could be a really interesting thing to add to this subclass, to once again acknowledge that the Feywild isn't like a lot of other planes, and that it is fickle, like I said with the first part, but then also it has wants and desires and things like that, and try to have the Feywild as an entity pushing the Ranger's mind in a lot of different directions. So what did you all think? Did you enjoy this video? Let me know down in the comments below what subclasses you would like to see next. We have lots of other videos on the channel, not just dealing with subclasses, and we have a new actual play show, Kyber Shards, that is going on right now, so you definitely want to go check that out and get to see me play a Great Old One Warlock, which is a lot of fun and I'm really enjoying it. Thank you all so much for watching the video. Please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time.